Good afternoon to all the students. So in today's session we are going to start the discussion on the factorization, right? So we will see what this factorization is and how we can calculate the GCD and LCM. GCD stands for greatest common divisor and LCM stands for least common multiplier. How we can calculate this GCD and LCM by making use of this factorization technique. And similarly we will also discuss some of the factorization methods such as the trial division method, and similarly we have some Pollard P-1 method and Pollard RHO method, Fermat method. Like that we have different methods to calculate this factorization or to deal with the factorization concept, right? So we are not going deep into the algorithms, what this algorithm is doing and like that, but we will try to discuss the complexities of these algorithms, right? So complexities is a very important concept. Complexities of algorithms we need to discuss, and we can by looking at the complexities of the algorithms we can estimate the efficiency of those algorithms, right? So you people know very well that the efficiency of an algorithm can be measured by making use of two metrics. What are those two metrics by which we can measure the efficiency of the algorithm?
Time complexity and space complexity.
Time complexity and space complexity. Super. And as you know that the time complexity plays very important role. Why? Because we are less concerned about the space complexity. Why? Because we have lot of space that is available nowadays. With the recent technologies we have lot of memory that is available for very less cost, right? But the time complexity is a metric on which we will measure the efficiency of any algorithm, that to the worst case time complexity, right? So we are not bothered about the worst case, average case and the best case analysis in this particular algorithmic discussions. We'll just discuss what is the time complexity of a particular method. For example, if you take the fundamental theorem or if you take the factorization methods like Fermat method or trial division method, we'll just discuss what is the complexity. By this we will come to know that how difficult it is to factorize a given number, right? So the basically what you want to look into this factorization technique is we'll discuss various methods of how we can factorize a given number into different number of factors, but it also we are going to discuss how complex it is to factorize the thing, right? So there are a lot of algorithms that have been proposed for this factorization technique, but even you can observe that even there is a lot of research that is going on about these factorization methods also, right? And you can observe that you can simply keep it in mind that the factorization is a very tough task, right? Because of this disadvantage of factorizing a given number into factors, because of this disadvantage the cryptography has made use of this factorization technique in various cryptographic algorithms. Actually they have converted the disadvantage of this factorization as the advantage in the cryptography, right? So we'll see how it is going to happen, right? We'll see a very good example on this factorization and how this difficulty in the factorization became the benefit in the cryptography technique, right? So this is how we have planned in today's session. We are going to discuss a topic on factorization. You are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
So factorization, as we have discussed it, that factorization is a subject of continuous research in the past, and this research is likely to continue in the future also. Lot of research has been done and there are a lot of chances for defining different algorithms for this factorization, right? So, and factorization plays a very important role in the security of several public key crypto systems. What do you mean by public key crypto system? What is the other name for the public key crypto system? Is it symmetric or asymmetric? We have gone through the discussions on this also. So, public key crypto systems are otherwise called as the asymmetric key crypto systems, where you will be using, or where the user is trying to use two different keys, one for the encryption and another for the decryption. So, for encryption the other will be using the public key, and for the decryption the other will be using the private key. So, this is how the asymmetric key crypto system is defined. We will discuss the differences between the symmetric and the asymmetric key crypto systems in the later sessions also. That's not an issue, right? So, the topics which we are going to discuss under this particular factorization is the fundamental theorem of the arithmetic, very simple technique, right? And then we will see different factorization techniques like the trial division method, the Fermat method, Pollard P-1 method, Pollard RHO method, and there are some efficient methods other than this Pollard, Fermat and trial division method. We will see. As I told that we are not going to discuss the deep into this particular topic, right? We are just going to look at the efficiency or the complexity of these algorithms. So, by looking at the efficiency or the complexity of these algorithms, you will come to an understanding that the factorization is a very complex task, and that is the reason why this is being used for the public key crypto systems. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So, the first point which we are going to discuss is the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. Here, any positive integer that is greater than 1 can be written uniquely in the prime factorization, right? Prime factorization. Here, factorization means you are going to find the factors, and prime factorization means we are going to find the prime factors. That is the difference you should understand. So, any number, you take any number from z is a set of integers which is greater than 1. It can be uniquely represented as the prime factors, as a sequence of prime factors, or as a product of prime factors. That is called as the prime factorization. So, here you can observe that n is a number that is taken from the set z, and that is represented as the product of prime numbers. Here p1, p2, p3 and so on, pk are the prime numbers. And e1, e2, e3 and so on, ek, these are all called as the exponents. Right. So, we will see an example also, don't worry. For example, let us take a value of 14. How can I express this into product of prime numbers? So, I divide this 14 with 2, or let me take 7 also, like this. 7 2s are 14, right? So, I can express it as 2 into 2 power 1 into 7 power 1. So, here 2 and 7 are prime numbers, and 1 is exponent 1, and here this 1 is exponent 2. Like that, you can express any positive number from the set z as the product of prime numbers with their respect to exponents. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So, you might have a doubt that why these factorization methods are. So, the applications of this factorization method is you can easily find out the greatest common divisor, or you can easily find out the least common multiplier. So in the first discussions of the mathematics related to the symmetric key cryptography, we have gone through the discussion on the Euclidean algorithm, or we have gone through the discussion on extended Euclidean algorithm. The extended Euclidean algorithm is used to find the GCD in an easier fashion, right? So this is another way where you can make use of the factorization technique to find the GCD of two numbers. So let us say that A and B are two numbers and you want to find the GCD of this A and B. So what you will do is, by making use of the factorization, prime factorization technique, you will find the prime factors of A like this: P1 power A1, let us write it as E1, anything you can write, A1 into P2 power A2 and so on up to Pk power A power Ak. Similarly, the B is also expressed as a sequence or a product of prime numbers. Let us say that B is expressed as P1 power B1, P2 power B2 and so on up to Pk power Bk. In order to find the GCD of A and B, right, so you will take the prime numbers, common prime numbers, that is P1, P2 and Pk, and the exponent of that prime number becomes the minimum of A1 comma B1. Similarly, the exponent of P2 becomes the minimum of A2 and B2. So you are going to make use of a minimum function here, right? So for example, assume that A1 is 2 and here this B1 is 5. Let us assume. Let us put this P1 as a common. So in order to find the GCD of A comma B, what you will take? P1 power minimum of 2 comma 5. What is the minimum of 2 comma 5? It is 2. Like that, you have to take the minimum value of the exponent of each and every prime number and you take the product. The resultant will be the GCD of the two given numbers A and B. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So another application where we can use this factorization technique is to find the least common multiplier, LCM of two numbers. So here also I take the same numbers A and B, where A is expressed as the product of prime numbers such as P1 power A1, P2 power A2 and so on Pk power Ak. Similarly, B is expressed as P1 power B1, P2 power B2 and so on Pk power Bk. And when you want to find the LCM of A comma B, the same formula you will be applying, but instead of minimum function, you are going to use the maximum function. So P1 of max of A comma B. Let us continue with the same example. Let us take this A1 as 2 and B1 as 5. So while calculating the LCM of A comma B, here this becomes P1 power max of 2 comma 5. Therefore this becomes P1 power 5. The maximum value of 2 and 5 is 5. So this is how the least common multiplier is identified or is calculated by making use of the factorization technique. So this is one of the application where we can find the GCD and LCM by making use of the prime factorization technique. And there is one more formula where we are very much aware of this. LCM of two numbers A and B multiplied with the GCD of the same numbers A and B is equivalent to A cross B, that is A into A multiplied with B. Right. This is a common formula which you can keep it in mind, right? So is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now we are going to discuss one of the important, simplest and least efficient. Remember that this is the least efficient algorithm to find the factors of the prime factors of a given number, right? But it is very simplest technique. We are all very well aware of this technique, right? So this is a trial division method. The first method of factorization what we are going to discuss is trial division method. So we are going to take the trials, that means we are going to take the samples and we will divide it, and if it divides the given number exactly, then we will take it as a factor. That's it. Very simple technique. As I told that this is very simplest technique, but the disadvantage is it is the least efficient. Why we are saying that it is least efficient means the time complexity of this trial division factorization method is exponential. Can you see this screen? The last one. The complexity of this trial division factorization method is exponential. Right. So coming to this pseudocode for this trial division factorization technique, initially we will start with a very simple number, that is a is equal to 2, right? N is the number which is to be factored. We need to find the factors of n. So the input to this algorithm is n. I will start with the simple prime number, the least prime number, which is 2, right? So while a less than or equal to square root of n, and while n mod a, that means when you find the modulus of n with a, if it is equal to 0, then you can identify that this is a factor, right? So here you can observe that there are two loops here. This is one while loop, first loop, and this is second loop. The first loop is used to identify the factors. Factor is nothing but when you divide it by that number, it will result in the remainder 0. Right. So the outer loop is used to identify the factors, and the inner loop, the second loop, is used to to multiply, that means number of iterations, right? That means, for example, if you have 2 power 2 into 3 power 5, like this. So the outer loop is used to identify these 2 and 3, what are the factors, and the inner loop is used to multiply it with the exponent. This 2 square and 3 power 5 will be done by the inner loop. So this is how the trial division method is defined, and you can see that the complexity is good. That means this trial division factorization method works up to a number which is given as n less than power of 2 power. That is, if it is n less than 2 power 10, that means the number is less than 2 power 10, then this trial division factorization method works very well. But once you increase the number beyond this 2 power 10, it becomes very inefficient, and it is infeasible for factoring the large numbers, right? Taking small number and factorizing is a very simple task that every algorithm will satisfy, factorizing a small number. But the concept which we are going to use in the cryptography system is very large numbers you are going to use. So factorizing large numbers is a very tedious task, and till now there is no efficient algorithm to find the prime factors of a very large number. This is very important point, you should understand, right? Factorizing a small number is not that much complex, but the cryptography always makes use of large numbers in order to protect the data, or in order to not to make the data visible to the attacker. So they make use of large numbers. So finding the factors for the large numbers, we don't have much efficient algorithms till date also. That is the reason why the first and foremost point that we have discussed is under this factorization is there is lot of research that has been done in the past, and still there is lot of scope for factorization algorithms in the future also, right? So this algorithm, the trial division factorization method, is efficient until unless you take the number that is less than 2 power 10. But it becomes very inefficient. The complexity is exponential, right? So can anybody tell me, do you have any idea on the time complexities? What is the least time complexity we have? Any idea? What is the least time complexity we have? For example, if I say the complexity is big O of 10, what is this 10 here? Any idea? Yes or no? If I say the complexity is big O of 10, what does this complexity we can call it as? We can call this complexity as the constant. Time complexity is constant. Let us give another example. For example, you might have seen the binary search, right? The time complexity is something around big O of log n. So what is this particular complexity called as? The concept is straightforward, that this complexity is logarithmic in nature, right? In MedSort or in QuickSort, you might have seen the concept like the complexity is defined as big O of n log n. What is this complexity called as? Log n is called as logarithmic time complexity. What is this n log n called as? It is called as linear logarithmic. This is very important, please keep it in mind, right? So this complexity we call it as the linear logarithmic. And another thing, you might have seen the complexity such as big O of n square or big O of n cube, like this. What is these particular complexities called as? So these complexities are called as the polynomial complexities. Polynomial, right? N square, n cube, n power 4. Like that, you keep on incrementing this power value, n power 5. Anything we call it as a polynomial complexity. Other than this, we have another complexity which is called as exponential. Exponential complexity. Exponential complexity is k power n. So when you have an algorithm which has the complexity as k power n, we call such type of complexities as the exponential complexities, right? So which is taking more time? Any idea? If you take the constant value big O of 10 or 20, something like that, it is that means we say that the complexity of the constant is much less than this logarithmic time complexity. Similarly, the logarithmic time complexity is much less than linear logarithmic. Linear logarithmic is much less than the polynomial complexity. Similarly, polynomial complexity is much less than exponential, right? So can anybody tell me the best algorithm? For example, I have an algorithm A1 and A2, let us say, two algorithms for the same task, right? Can we have different algorithms for the same task? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. So I have given you people a task, and one person has come up with an algorithm A1 and second person has come up with an algorithm A2. Now if I evaluate this algorithm A1, I got the time complexity as log n. And if I evaluate this A2, I got the time complexity as polynomial time complexity, which is big O of n square. Let us assume this one. So what is the A1 is having logarithmic time complexity and A2 is having the polynomial time complexity. Now tell me which algorithm is efficient. Is it A1 or is it A2?
A1, sir. A1, sir.
Super, right. A1 is having the logarithmic time complexity. That means it can complete its task in a much lesser time. Log n is very less value. But if you take A2, it is going to complete its task in n square polynomial time, which is not acceptable, right? For example, A1 is logarithmic and A2 is linear logarithmic. Now tell me which one is efficient.
A1, sir.
A1 only, right? As you can see in this particular example, what we have discussed, constant time complexity is much less than logarithmic time complexity. That means much less means it is going to complete its task in a efficient manner. And logarithmic is much less than linear logarithmic. Linear logarithmic is much less than polynomial. Polynomial is much less than exponential. Now tell me, when you are writing a new algorithm, when you people are writing a new algorithm, what is that you want to achieve? You want to achieve your algorithm to be completed with exponential time complexity, or polynomial, or linear logarithmic, or logarithmic, or constant? Tell me.
Constant, sir.
Constant, right? Maximum, at max, you try to implement your algorithm with an efficiency or with a time complexity of constant time complexity, but this is not at all possible. But this is not that much easy to achieve this task, right? So you try to achieve the complexity which is logarithmic in nature. If it is not possible, at least try to achieve it with linear logarithmic. Never ever write algorithms which is exponential in nature. The time complexity is exponential is not accepted. Is it clear? Is it clear about the algorithmic efficiency?
Yes, sir.
Now tell me, this particular algorithm is very good until you have a number that is less than 2 power 10. But the complexity is exponential. Can we take this algorithm for factorization? Can we accept this algorithm for factorization?
No, sir.
No, right? So for just trial and error method, in order to get some idea on the factorization, we can make use of this thing. Nothing wrong in it, but you cannot make use of it for the cryptographic algorithms. Why? Because cryptographic algorithms require much efficient algorithms which may complete or which will have the time complexity in the logarithmic or linear logarithmic. Even polynomial is also accepted. Nothing wrong in it, right? Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So these are the two examples he has given by using the trial division method. When you give the n as 1 to 33, you will get two numbers. What is this 3? It is a prime number. 137 is also a prime number. So this 3 and 137 are identified in the first loop. And this square, these are the exponents. Here 137 power 1. These two exponents are multiplied with these factors in the inner loop. Similarly, by using the trial division method, if you give the input to the trial division factorization method 15233577784, you will get the factors like this: 2 cube into 3 square into 13 into 37 into 43987. Clear? Just an example.
Yes, sir.
Right. So the next method which we are going to discuss is the Fermat method. See, you can see the Fermat method in any mathematics concept that we are going to use it in the cryptography, right? Fermat's method, we have it in the finding the GCDs. Fermat method, we have it in the cryptographic algorithms. So Fermat is a very famous scientist who has done lot of work under these cryptographic concepts, right? So we have lot of methods. We have seen in the previous discussions also that Fermat is having his own methodology in each and every concept that is related to the cryptography. In the similar manner, factorization methods, Fermat also identified a method for the factorization. Right. So in this particular method, what the Fermat has done is, if you are given a number n, you are going to identify two numbers a and b, such that if you multiply this a and b, you will get the result. Right. But this is not that much easier, right? So what Fermat has done is, here he divides the given number n into two positive integers a and b, and remember that they are not necessarily prime. He has expressed this a and b in such a way that this a and b is equal to x square minus y square. Right. So if it is written like this, or if you are able to express this n as x square minus y square, you can easily identify this a and b, where a can be given as x plus y and b can be given as x minus y. So if a into b is equal to x plus y into x minus y, what is a plus b into a minus b? It is a square minus b square. So this is the simple technique the Fermat has used. Right. So in this method, what is the input that is given to this algorithm? It is nothing but a number n. Right. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this method tries to identify two integers a and b. This is the first point you should understand. Initially, what the author is trying to do is, he initializes a value of x with a very small number, that is square root of n. Whatever number you have taken, you find the square root of that one, and you assign a smallest, very close number to x. Once you have identified such number, then you have to make lot of trials, and you try to find another integer y, such that the relation y square is equal to x square minus 1 wholes. Right. How we got this particular formula? Y square is equal to x square minus 1. So I am going to express this n as x square minus y square. From this, y square is equal to x square minus n. Right. So how can you find this y value? This implies y is equal to square root of x square minus n. So you take a very small number which is closer to this square root of n, and you try to identify a value of y such that it holds this relation. What is this relation? Y square is equal to x square minus n. This one. This double is nothing but y square. Don't get confused. Y square is equal to x square minus 1. That means y is equal to square root of x square minus n. Right. So once you identify this y, you can simply calculate the values of a and b by the formula a is equal to x plus y and b is equal to x minus y. And finally, the algorithm is going to return the values of a and b. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So the basic idea behind this Fermat's method is, the given number can be expressed as x square minus y square. Your target is to find two values a and b. That how you are going to do is, you are going to take an x value which is very much closer to the square root of n, and then you make use of the while loop, random numbers, right? X less than or less than n. you try to find the value of y such that this particular relation holds, that is square root of x square minus 1 holds. Once you identify such number, you just calculate the value of a with x plus y and the value of b as x minus y. These two values are returned at the end. Right. By looking at this particular Fermat's factorization method, the complexity of this Fermat's method is sub-exponential. Sub-exponential. What do you mean by sub-exponential? In the previous algorithm, we have seen the different algorithmic complexities, right? That is constant, logarithmic, linear logarithmic, polynomial, exponential. We have not gone through sub-exponential. So the sub-exponential is another time complexity that comes in between this polynomial time complexity and exponential time complexity, somewhere around here, right? So here it comes the sub-exponential. Is it clear? So you can see here that the sub-exponential algorithm is somewhat efficient than the exponential algorithm, but it is not efficient than polynomial. Why? Because the complexity is lying between this polynomial and exponential. So compared to that of exponential algorithms, this sub-exponential algorithm is better in its performance. So when compared to this trial division method and Fermat's method, which one is efficient?
Fermat method, sir.
Fermat method. Why? Because this complexity of this Fermat method is sub-exponential, which is much better than the exponential algorithm, which is trial division method. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we'll see some more factorization methods like Pollard P-1, Pollard RHO method. All these things we'll discuss. Right. Give me 1 minute of time. Can you see this Pollard P-1 method? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So this is another factorization method which was invented by John M. Pollard. Pollard is a scientist. Right. And it was invented in the year 1974. So the main aim of this Pollard P-1 method is to find the prime factor P of a given number n. So the input is again n, the output is to find the prime factors, right? And why this is called as Pollard P-1 method is, it depends on a assumption. This is just an assumption. It depends on an assumption that or a condition that the P-1 has no factor that is larger than the predefined value, which is called as B. Right. Until P-1 you don't have the factor which is larger than P-1. That is the reason why we are calling this method as P-1, Pollard P-1 method. Clear? The simple point you have to remember under this Pollard P-1 method is, this is based on a condition that P-1 has no factor that is larger than the predefined value, which is called as B. Here B is called as the bound. So we define a bound and we assume that p minus 1 does not have the number does not have a number p minus 1, that is no factor longer than this bound. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So Pollard showed that the formula as p is equal to GCD of 2 power b factorial minus 1 comma n. This is the formula that is given by the Pollard. Right. We are not bothered about what this p minus 1 factorization algorithm is. Forget about it. But as I told that the complexities of these algorithms should be discussed. Right. Here you can see that prime factor p of a number is found based on the condition that p minus 1 has no factor larger than the predefined value b, which is called as bound. And the p is given by the formula p is equal to GCD of 2 power b factorial minus 1 into comma n. The important concept you have to remember here is the complexity of Pollard p minus 1. So the Pollard p minus 1 method is having the complexity somehow greater than big O of b. What is this b? What is this b called?
Bound, sir.
Bound, right? Bound. So this bound can be expressed as big O of 2 power n subscript b. You don't confuse with this notation. This is n subscript b, right? So this n subscript b is nothing but the number of bits. It is called as the number of bits. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let us take an example. What is this big O of 2 power nb, sir? I can't understand means. Let us take an example where you want to factor a number like 57247159. These are all examples which is given in the textbook itself, right? I am following the textbook. So this is the number that is given and I want to find the factors. And let us take the bound value as 8. Bound value as 8. If you run this Pollard p minus 1 algorithm or the method by using this large number 57247159, actually this is not that much large number. You will find much larger values in the coming sessions also, right? So if you take this number and the bound value as 8 and you run the Pollard p minus 1 algorithm and you find that p is equal to 421. And the complexity will be something like p power big O of b, that is big O of 8, right? So if you express it in terms of this number of bits, it will be around big O of 2 power, for example, how many digits are, right? 2 power some 8 decimals, some 2 power 4, something like that. So this is how the Pollard p minus 1 factorization method has been defined. Right. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Just remember these complexities, that's it, nothing more than that. And the next method which we are going to discuss is the Pollard RHO method. When was this Pollard p minus 1 method invented?
1974, sir.
1974, right? Because of the complexity problem, that is big O of 2 power nb, he is not satisfied with the results from the Pollard p minus 1 method. So in 1975, the same author Pollard has developed a second method of factorization which is called as the Pollard RHO factorization. Pollard RHO factorization. Right. So this is the algorithm. he tries to find the f of x function with modulo operated with n, and he assigns it to x, and then he again finds y by making use of this function f of y dot mod n, like that. And finally, in order to find the prime value or the prime factor, he tries to find the GCD of x minus y comma n. Right. As I told that, don't bother about these algorithms. The main concept what you have to understand is the complexities. Why the Pollard has moved to RHO method? Why the Pollard has moved to RHO method? Recently he has proposed, in 1974 itself he has proposed P minus 1 method. The reason why he has moved to RHO method is he wants to improve his algorithm. He wants to improve his algorithm means he wants to make an efficient algorithm which is having the less time complexity than the Pollard P minus 1 method. Right. So if you observe the complexity of this Pollard RHO method, it is around big O of 2 power nb by 4. It is big O of 2 power nb by 4. What is nb here? What is nb?
Number of bits.
Number of bits. See here, previously I have big O of 2 power nb. Now the Pollard RHO method is having the complexity of big O of 2 power nb by 4. Is it efficient method? RHO is efficient than the P minus 1 method or not?
Yes, sir. Efficient, sir.
Right. For example, let us take the number of bits as 16. By making use of P minus 1 method, the complexity is big O of 2 power nb, which is 2 power 16. And if you take the RHO method, the author says that it is going to achieve it by using the big O of 2 power nb by 4. What is nb by 4? 16 by 4 is 4. Right. So this RHO method is completing its task in big O of 2 power 4 time units, and P minus 1 method is going to complete its task in big O of 2 power 16 time units. So which is efficient? Which is going to complete its task in less time? Is it
RHO method, sir.
RHO method, right? So this is how you need to understand. There are different factorization methods, and out of which what are the complexities we have? What is the complexity for the trial division factorization method?
Exponential, sir.
Exponential. What is the complexity for Fermat method?
Sub-exponential, sir.
Sub-exponential. What about this Pollard P minus 1 and RHO? They are also exponential only, right? Exponential means x power y. This is how you will express this exponential time complexity. Here 2 power 16 is something like x power y. 2 power 4 is something like x power y only, right? So the bit complexities or the complexities are expressed in terms of exponential. This is also exponential. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. We will try to end up this topic with a simple example. Right. Let us take open board here. So let us take a simple example from the prescribed textbook. let us assume that there is a computer, right, which can operate at a speed of 2 power 30 bits per second. Right. Now, what is the time complexity with respect to the p-1 method, pollard p-1 and pollard RHO method? If you are having 60 decimal digits, listen carefully, 60 decimal digits, right? For example, if a number is having 60 decimal digits, you need to convert it into number of bits, right? So this 60 decimal digits is almost equal to 200 bits. So this is equal to NB. So what is my NB here? It is 200 bits. Now let us take the p-1 method. What is the bit complexity for the p-1 method? It is big O of 2 power NB. That is equal to, it is big O of 2 power 200. What is 2 power 200? What is 2 power 200? It is a very large number, right? It is not even days, it will take some years together, right? So if you take the same RHO method, right, but here you should observe one point, that this 2 power 200 is not the actual concept, right? Why? Because the computer is operating at 2 power 30 bits per second. So you have to divide this 2 power 200 with 2 power 30. So what is the result you will get? It is 2 power 170, 200 minus 30. So it will be around 2 power 170, which is some years together. Years together you have to run the program with this computer speed. And if I take the RHO method, the same example, right? What is the complexity I have? It is 2 power NB by 4. That is 200 by 4. That is equal to 50. But the computer is going to operate at 2 power 30 bits per second, right? I have 2 power 50 bits per second. So that resultant will be 2 power 50 by 2 power 30. That is equal to 2 power 20. So the resultant output what I will get is the big O of 2 power 20. So 2 power 20 seconds means it is around 12 days. See here, 2 power 20 is 12 days. What about the value of 2 power 170? As I told that it will run for years together. Even if you take the fastest computer, 2 power 30 bits per second means it's almost equal to 1 billion per second speed. Very fastest computer. Even then also the algorithms are not going to give the result up to years together. So this is the advantage of this factorization. You might be wondering that why SAR is telling that it is an advantage, right? As I told that this is actually the disadvantage. The finding out the factorization or finding out the factors is a big disadvantage with respect to the number theory. But that finding out the finding out the difficulty of finding out the factors for a given number is a boon to the cryptographic techniques, right? Why it is a boon means the attacker cannot get the factors. He finds lot of difficulty in finding the factors. Unless he find the factors, he won't get the plain text. So the ultimate goal of an attacker is to get the plain text. But it is not going to achieve. Why? Because we are going to use the factorization technique. So factorization is a very tough task for the attackers to deal with it. So that is the reason why the factorization is a boon to the cryptography. You make use of factorization technique and you just make use of this encryption and decryption. But it will be very easy for the sender and the receiver, they may end up with polynomial time complexity only. But the Eve, the attacker or the third party, unauthorized third party, if he tries to get the plain text with this particular data, it will be very difficult for him to crack the plain text. It is somewhat exponential to the attacker. Remember the terms. So the encryption and decryption takes polynomial time, but for the encryption and decryption takes polynomial times for the sender and the receiver. Very much advantage for the sender and receiver. But if the third party, unauthorized third party, tries to attack the text and he tries to get the plain text, it will take the exponential time. You can see this example, right? So even though the attacker has used the most sophisticated computer which will run very fast, for factorization itself it takes a lot of years. So what is the need of getting the plain text, right? So this is one of the boon to the cryptography, factorization. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Further, we have some more efficient factorization methods such as quadratic sieve and number field sieve. Right. So in the quadratic sieve, the complexity is expressed as big O of e power c, where c is given as log n into log n power 1 by 2. Right. So if I express this one, you can see here, 1 minute. So in the quadratic sieve, the complexity is given as big O of e power c, where c is expressed as log n, right? Ln stands for log n. Log n into log n of n whole power 1 by 2. This you can also express it as ln base n power 1 by 2 into log of n power 1 by 2. Is it clear? This is quadratic sieve. And there is another technique called as number field sieve, where the complexity is expressed as big O of e power c only, but c is defined as log of n power 1 by 3 into log of n power 2 by 3. Right. So now tell me which one is efficient. Is it the quadratic sieve or number field sieve when compared to this two? Quadratic is this one and this is number field. As you can see that the complexity of quadratic sieve is power 1 by 2, whereas the complexity of the number field sieve is expressed as power 1 by 3. So if the denominator value is increasing, original value is going to decrease. Now tell me which one is efficient.
Number field C, sir.
Number fields, right? So this is not going to be an exponential. These two are going to end up with the sub-exponential complexity. This is one of the advantage we have. Right? Clear?
Yes, sir.
So in today's session, we have seen the importance of factorization in the cryptography. We have seen what prime factorization is, what is the basic algorithm we have, and how we can express a given number into prime factors, and how we can calculate the GCD and LCM by making use of these prime factors. After that, we have gone through various methods of identifying the factors, that is factorization methods. The first method is trial division factorization method. We have seen it, and what is the complexity we have? It is exponential in nature. Later, Fermat has introduced his own factorization method, which is having a time complexity or a bit complexity which is equivalent to sub-exponential in nature. Later, Pollard, a scientist called Pollard, he developed the p-1 method, which proves the complexity as, what is the complexity of Pollard p-1? What is the complexity?
Sub-exponential.
It is also sub-exponential only, right? But he is not satisfied with this p-1 method. Therefore, he has invented another method which is called as the RHO method. It is also sub-exponential only, but when compared to that of RHO method and p-1 method, p-1 has the bit complexity of big O of 2 power nb, whereas the RHO method is having the complexity of big O of 2 power nb by 4. So other than these two things, we also have the more efficient methods like the quadratic sieve method, which has a time complexity of big O of e power c, where c is expressed as log n power 1 by 2 into log n log of n power 1 by 2. And the number field sieve is having the same complexity big O of e power c, but the c is expressed as log n power 1 by 3 into log n into log of n into power 2 by 3. So both of them are also sub-exponential in nature. So you can observe here that you are ending up with different methods which are exponential in nature only. Am I right or not? Exponential or sub-exponential? If you look at the trial and division method, it is exponential. Other methods are sub-exponential in nature. So any algorithm or any method that you take for the factorization, they are going to end up with the exponential time complexity or sub-exponential time complexity. So this is a big advantage for making use of these factorization techniques in the asymmetric key cryptography. We are going to use this technique only in the asymmetric key cryptography. I will tell you why we are going to use it only in the asymmetric key cryptography. Right. So this is what we have discussed in today's session. This is end of today's session. Thank you one and all for joining the session.
Thank